Hello and welcome to Survival, Solidarity, and Strategy, a conversation with General Strike U.S. Thank you for being here. I know there's a lot going on, so we deeply appreciate your time and your commitment to being with us in this conversation. My name is Jason Bayless. I'm with the Radical Guide. And before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit about a Radical Guide for those who may not know. Radical Guide focuses on three pillars that revolve around connect, amplify, and unite. We connect people to help find them spaces to join, to support, and to learn from. And we also help linking people across regions around shared events such as this, workshops, and political campaigns. We also work in terms of amplifying, and what this means to us is that we lift up what is happening on the ground. We lift up the voices of the people on the ground doing projects, doing action, doing the work that actually creates the world that we all deserve. And finally, the final domain that we focus on is unite. And what that means to us is that we unite by building shared language, a shared history, and practical tools for people who can use to organize together. And if you want to explore more, you can just visit radicalguide.com and find out of all the different mechanisms and tools and resources that we provide there. But that's not what we're here for tonight. Tonight, we're here to connect with General Strike U.S. General Strike U.S. is a decentralized grassroots movement organizing towards a nationwide general strike. They operate through local chapters focused on mutual aid, strike preparedness, and community engagement. And so we're super excited to have tonight two members from two different chapters of General Strike U.S. So please, let's welcome them now. We have Daii, who organizes in Michigan, in the Michigan chapter, who brings the Detroit-rooted commitment to self-reliance and communities and collective resilience. And we have Eliza, who facilitates the New York City chapter and comes out of SEIU and the Fight for $15 campaign, where she learned to channel her grassroots energy into collective action. So thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
So to kick it off, let's well, before we kick it off, I do want to say something. I'm really excited having you here because 2 years ago on this date before we had General Strike U.S. We did a workshop panel with General Strike U.S. On the same date. And when we scheduled this one, we did not think about the dates or the times or the where we were in the moment. And as I was working to put this together and do the promotion, I realized that the dates that we scheduled this and everything are the exact same date that we did 2 years ago. So that's phenomenal. And I'm so happy to have General Strike U.S. again with us in conversation. And I think it's also important to note and say, so the general public is aware, that a Radical Guide is an organizing partner of General Strike U.S. So we're not here just to be in conversation. We're also invested in the commitment of bringing forth the work that we're going to talk about tonight. So again, thank you so much for being here. So to start it off, for the folks who this is the first time that they've heard about General Strike U.S., can you just kind of give us an overview of what it is, what you do, and what you want to achieve?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go
Thank
for
you
it.
so much. So sweet. Thank you so much, Jason, for that introduction. A Radical Guy is definitely one of our favorite, partners. And again, it's such a pleasure that we, built this relationship. It's going on 2 years, and here we are. At the heart of it, General Strike U.S. is about building the real conditions for a general strike. We're organizing towards a moment where millions of people can withhold their labor, their purchasing power, and consent from a system that has obviously been failing us for generations. So that means we're not, focused on symbolic actions or one-day events, but we are focusing on building power that can actually disrupt the systems and sustain people through that disruption. So in practice, that can look like base building, So chapters like ours in Detroit work to create local conditions for mass participation, gathering data, mapping power, building relationships, running survival programs, mutual aid networks, and connecting workplace struggles to community struggles. So all of that local information and capacity gets fed back into our national coordination. So, we're moving together and not like isolated chapters. There is just because we are decentralized doesn't mean that we're disorganized. And what we're aiming to achieve is a revolutionary general strike. And that means a strike that is rooted in community and that includes all people beyond just formal employment. And it has a long-term withdrawal strategy. That's very important. Just studying the historical movements, even here, just in the USA, that withdrawal strategy is very important just to have that. So with this, the strike initiative doesn't just stop work for a moment, but it helps people see their collective power and begin replacing systems that exploit us and move into establishing systems that where we have the control and is rooted in the image of the people.
Thank you. Leslie, you want to add anything?
We've voted, we've protested. We know it's not enough because under capitalism, our greatest strength is our labor and our constitutional right to refuse it. So we are first and foremost labor organizers. We are organizing regular workers to recognize their power.
And then, so one of the tactics that General Strike U.S. has integrated within the work is what you call the strike card. Can you speak about what that is?
Sure. So, I don't know if you've ever organized a strike. I've organized about 20 of mostly fast food workers and Walmart workers and retail workers across the country. But when we're organizing, it's about using the fact that there are more of us than there are of them. So it's a lot about numbers. We need to know how many people we have on board for a general strike so that when we have, a real mass movement in this country, we know we can shut our economy down. We know grocery stores will close, airports will close, teachers could be on strike. We know that we have the power going into the strike so that it'll be successful. And the way that we do that is to count how many folks we have committed. We need to know how many folks are strike ready. And so we created a digital tool at generalstrikeuS.com where we can harness that grassroots energy that we see online. Every time someone on TikTok calls for a general strike, we need to convert that into real power in numbers. And that's what the strike card is.
And then you have a number attached to the goal that you're trying to reach, is like 3.5% of the population in the U.S. What is the significance of the 3.5, and where does that generate? What does that mean for General Strike U.S.?
Correct. So when I was organizing at McDonald's, right, to know if that McDonald's shop would close for the strike, we would literally get a schedule where it would say how many workers were at that location. We'd say, okay, well, we know that we need at least half for the store to shut down. That number was, maybe 30. Research shows this researcher Chenoweth did research on mass movements across the world and kind of analyzed them, and they realized that if no mass movement that engaged a threshold of 3.5% of their population ever failed to bring about radical change. So 3.5% of the US population would be 11 million people. And it sounds like a lot, but that's an organizer's job, is to just wake people up and empower them to be ready to take action. So that is what we're doing. And we're at, almost 500,000 of 11 million.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I think it's really, just take a moment to tease that out even more. The 3.5 is like, that represents the tipping point that's needed for social change. And what I really enjoy and really respect with the General Strike U.S. is that strategy. It's really not about the number. It's not a goal. The number's not a goal. It's a vision of that's the tipping point that we need to put into place to create social change. Um, that's powerful, and I think that's where the chapters and the decentralization organizing is so important in this, is because it's not just, oh, we have 3.5% of the population who said, yeah, I'm interested, or that I want to go, that I would do a strike, but they're actually prepared, have the education, have the understanding, and understand the impact what a general strike has. And I think that's an awesome strategy. So my question is like, for folks who are thinking about this and looking at kind of the broad stroke of it, is around what is needed in terms of the efforts of General Strike U.S. Locally on the ground, is like, what is that threshold that turns a commitment into action? What is that people signed up and said, I agree to sign up for this, that I'll go on strike. What is that transition of that commitment? What does that look like? Like, where people say, well, if a strike is effective, what is it going to produce? How is shutting down business as normal going to actually create social change?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is completely answering your question, but we talk a lot in organizing about like what is the recipe for getting someone from a place where they're angry at the conditions, they're scared of the condition, and they are ready to take action in this way. And it's really twofold. You have to be really, really mad at the way the system is to be ready to go on strike, because strikes always have sacrifice attached to them, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's inherently a sacrifice, and no strike ever was without sacrifice on behalf of working people. But then two, people also need to believe that the personal is political, that these problems are greater than just their problems, that they are happening to people all across the country, and believe that if we come together, we can fix these problems. And they have to believe that they are part of something greater than themselves. So I think in terms of like what needs to happen is people need to be mad, and then they need to believe.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're trying to do as general strike organizers.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah, that's
with
go ahead.
Eliza. I agree with Eliza. A big part of that is just listening and helping translate what's going on to the people, helping the people translate, and also just like they said, see their power and whatnot, and that they actually do have the power to make change within their community. Locally, we're finding like ways people can actually plug in. We're not waiting for others to come and help us solve our food problems or solve our housing crisis and whatnot. We're coming together, utilizing our meetings, utilizing community events and whatnot to discuss and assess our communities and show people, okay, we have this amount of skills over here, we have these resources over here. How do we put both of these together, these skills and resources, and build the power that's needed and whatnot.
Absolutely. And I think if I reflect back to what you're both are saying, is there's kind of two domains that move people from being aware to moving into action. And
Mm.
that one is that they that it the issue that's in front of them is something that they experience. It's not something that's over there. It's something that they have a lived experience of the oppression or whatever the issue may be. And two, that they see themselves in the solution moving forward. And those two things, it is the focal point that I hear that General Strike U.S. is looking for. So let's tease that out a little bit more. And since General Strike U.S., organized by chapters, they you mentioned this a little bit, but what does the work actually look like on the local level? It's like, what is the conversations you're having with people? What are you inviting them into? How are you cultivating a way that are they see a problem, that the problems that are manifesting in the world is something that affects them as well, even though they may be removed from it physically.
Right on. So on a local level, the biggest thing that we're doing, the simplest way we can put it is that we are helping bring people together so they can assess the conditions, the share skills, and decide what organizing makes sense where they live at. And a lot of this is done through tools such as community surveys, through community discussion and whatnot. One of the biggest programs that we have in our chapter that's ongoing is called Feeding the Fight. And it's a great tool for us to build that local coalition because it is a collaboration, not just with General Strike U.S. Detroit chapter, but it's other local orgs, other local groups who are a part of making this possible. Feeding the Fight is an ongoing community survival program, and it is used so we can shape and create the conditions to allow for Detroiters and the surrounding areas near Detroit to participate in a national general strike. So that includes like groups like Food Not Class. That includes like groups, mutual aid groups like Feeding Michigan or Michigan Mutual Aid Collective, and so on and so forth. Engineers Against Apartheid. We've been able to make so many connections with local groups just through this one program. And we are materially helping the people as well. So community members attend this survival program, Feeding the Fight. They attend are able to get certain resources like household supplies, clothing. We have a free store that's involved in this community program. We also have political education that's embedded within the program for community discussion and whatnot. So that program alone basically does what a lot of the other chapters are doing, is helping to create those conditions where connecting with groups who can help provide strike needs, or B, connecting with groups who are already advocating for items on our broad list of demands.
So it sounds like mutual aid is an aspect of how you organize on a local ground. Is that a true assessment?
Absolutely, it's a true assessment. Just given the fact that a lot of people, they aren't gonna want to, quit their jobs. They are not gonna want to, take any actions that will put them or their loved ones in jeopardy. But if we have those alternative systems, if we have the networks of care, they'll be a little bit more interested. They'll be a little bit more motivated to take part in this resistance, because once again we'll need as many people as we can involved in this. Also, just the mutual aid aspect is a great teacher, is a tool to show people their power. As the Panthers put it, participation is a great teacher. If people are experiencing, if they are engaging with the programs, if they are helping feed their neighbors, if they are helping transport resources and so on, that brings a certain level of empowerment to the people, in which we understand that this system tries to squash or disseminate any relations to people power. They want people to believe that any good, any services should be provided by the state, and the people should just be grateful. But that's not it. When we say all power to the people, mutual aid is one of those vehicles to help materialize that, because people are involved with it. They have control over it, unlike the system as well. Mutual aid itself is meant to advance. So if we are starting off, for instance, with uh, um, a food pantry, we should be thinking, how can we expand this mutual aid? And that's when we get into our survival programs, and that's when we may start thinking about food cooperatives and things of this things of that nature. General Strike U.S. We have a 3-pillar framework which names mutual aid being a low lift. It's a entry point for new members, especially those who are coming off, the picket line, or who are coming away from the protest and looking for more to do. They may start with a community shared meal. But again, we always want to be thinking about forward thinking, long term. How can we expand this mutual aid project? And that's when we get into the survival programs. And once we have multiple food cooperatives in one region, then our third pillar, it gets into regional redistribution. That's when we are organizing at the highest point. That's when we are able to do regional distribution, and so on and so forth. So yes, we are starting. We are starting with low barriers, low lifts. It may just be helping your neighbors get to work. But then we always want to be thinking, how can this mutual aid advance to something like the people's transportation, or to something like the people's auto shop, things of that nature. Once again, anything that we are currently dependent on this system for, we should be thinking about how can we create people-led alternatives to those. So yes, mutual aid definitely will help us sustain the general strike. It will help more people become feel at ease when saying, yes, I want to withdraw my labor, I want to withdraw my purchasing power. I don't have to shop at the Walmarts or the Amazons, because I can go to this community network, this community program, and I can receive my needs.
Two really specific things we're working on here in my upstate New York chapter is there's two businesses that both shut down for the general strike on the 30th, and both are run by incredible immigrant people of color in my community. And we're collaborating with one to build a community fridge. So we were able to supply all the wood for that project, and that's really exciting. Um, and then also another thing we're doing is trying to bridge together the groups that are already on the ground doing incredible work and to get them pushing towards this idea of a general strike. So here in upstate New York, we're seeing the Saugerties Democratic Committee more open to DSA after Zoran Mamdani won the race in New York City. So we're working on creating a bridge between DSA and the Democrats so that the Dems can kind of learn how real organizing happens around real issues that are people's lived experience. So the general strike is helping kind of broker that relationship. As kind of a third party, we're able to help the two, come together. And I know it seems far, but that is how we get folks closer and closer to mass mobilization.
Absolutely. I mean, that kind of, we hear people all the time say meet people where they are at. I think what you just shared is an exact perfect example of that. It's actually being there and being in conversation, listening, and providing tools and connection so that people can move from where they are to where we need to be. Go ahead.
Sorry. And the beauty of the general strike and the beauty of this movement is that we are not actually trying to build our own singular organization. And by being really forward and transparent about that, we come across we don't have a horse in the game, right? DSA is trying to build membership, they're trying to build DSA members, and they're very focused on their agenda. And the Dems are doing the same. But by us coming in and saying we are just trying to bring everyone together and unite the left in realizing that we got to move beyond electoral politics. We have to move beyond these protests where we're standing in the streets for hours on end with a sign and then nothing happens afterwards. By pushing people who are already, in this space doing this work to come together and realize that under capitalism, we need to go further. We need a general strike. we're able to transcend a lot of the inter-organizational bureaucratic issues that sometimes make it hard for groups to come together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it brings up a good question, considering, what is happening in the world today. And curious of, like, what lessons are there to be learned by what we're seeing in the country with ICE, with people already having an experience of, the January 30th and strike. What lessons are there to be learned that we can carry forward and, uniting us in this movement?
The lesson to be learned is that the general strike is an idea whose time has come. And we saw that on the 30th. We always say, regular, everyday people are going to be the ones to lead, right? This revolution. And that is literally what we saw. It wasn't one politician or one organization or one union. It was regular, everyday people. First in Minneapolis, regular neighbors saying, I'm not going to let them deport my neighbor, right? And then student groups and faith leaders, and the power of social media and people, taking action locally in person, protecting their neighbors, but also taking to the internet and spreading the word. And then we saw, that turn into January 30th, the nationwide shutdown. And call it what you may, the number of news articles, the number of people searching general strike on the internet, talking about a general strike, was probably the largest number of people in modern history talking about a general strike. And there's so many stories that will never be even heard, right? Like, just in my personal universe, I have a friend that works at the Denver Museum of Science, and her coworkers were putting pressure on the Denver Museum of Science to close for the day. And ultimately they gave a ton of people the day off as a mental health day, right? But, like, these are stories that will not be in the news, but everywhere folks were talking about the need for a strike. And that was not because one union called for it, right? It was because regular people in a decentralized grassroots way amplified what was happening in Minneapolis. And that is why we saw today Trump giving up on having ICE in Minnesota, pulling ICE out of the state. That is directly because regular working people stood up and stood together. So I think the lessons to be learned are, one, the time has come for a general strike. We're seeing coalitions of unions who had been talking about setting their contracts to expire in 2028 are now moving the date to 2026. That's number one. It's happening. The general strike is happening now. Number two, it is regular, everyday people. And for anyone saying you can't meme your way to a general strike, do not discount the power of social media and distributed online organizing to making this a reality. Because you're just going to sound stupid, right? Like, like, and then number three is that, what was my number three? Oh, I don't even remember. But yeah, I forgot my number three. It'll come back to me. I just had a baby. My brain is a little bit.
Yeah, it's fine.
Crazy. But there's like serious lessons to be learned from this day because it was historic and it hasn't happened in, like, modern history.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that doesn't get talked about enough, and I know people talk about it, is what we saw happen, the shops and the stores that didn't close down, they actually shifted their quote unquote business model and provided their space. They didn't work, they provided their space for care. They provided their space for food. They provided the space for people to come in and get relief. And I think, as organizers and stuff, we normally don't make that the front, the leading foot that we talk about when we need to organize. But that's the leading one of the leading foot that General Strike U.S. has in terms of the way they're organizing is that it's not just that we are putting pressure on the institutions, the systems, and the corporations and stopping business as usual. We're building the infrastructure that actually creates something new and that creates something different. And that starts with us showing up for each other to start building that infrastructure. So there's an element of the organizing that we need to actually have when we go on strike, when we're challenging what's needed to be challenged, that there's a need for childcare, that there's a need for healthcare, that there's a need for taking care of each other for those who can't be out in the street marching, holding a poster. But there's infrastructure that we normally don't talk about that is actually embedded in the success of a general strike. Could y'all speak about that a little bit more and how that ties into the coalition building strategy?
Absolutely. So what we want to understand is first and foremost, no one group, no one individual is going to be able to, carry this out alone. And we've seen in the past when it's just one individual that they are intentionally targeted. So yes, coalition building is definitely strategic and is intentional within our organizing spaces. So for General Strike U.S. The coalition work again. It's not just about just getting a bunch of groups involved. It's about alignment. It's about timing and shared capacity. So we engage organizations, groups, and communities long before any major action on our behalf is carried out, so that when something does happen or when we do announce a strike date, people aren't scrambling. They're already organized, they're resourced, and they're already connected. And this approach, again, it supports that decentralized grassroots organizing, because it respects that real power is built locally by sector. It's built locally and sector by sector. So chapters and align groups know their conditions best. Detroit is definitely going to be different from New York. New York is definitely going to be different from LA. So our role isn't to flatten those struggles into one rigid line, but it's to link them together without absorbing or controlling any parts or aspects of that. So a good example of our coalition building is one of our projects from our outreach team. It's called Many Struggles, One Fight Initiative. It is a way for new members to plug in based on the struggles that they're already rooted in, rather it be tenant organizing, prison abolition, decolonization initiatives, disability justice, immigration, defense, labor, or so on and so forth. So through that process, we build relationships, share political education, co-create programs or resources, and connect that work back to GSUS's broader strategy. So any groups, so for instance, myself, I organize with our local tenants union, and a lot of that our demands is rooted in people over profit. So that goes hand in hand. That's how I'm connecting their work with our organizing effort. So this is intentional coalition building to ensure that strike needs can actually be supported, and that our demands again are being fought for and grounded in real organized communities. The coalition building helps ensure that the general strike initiative itself isn't just symbolic, but it's actually rooted in the people's material conditions and material gains that we are going to achieve and obtain.
I want to drill home what Daii is saying, because I've learned a lot from general strike organizers, especially Daii, about the importance of mutual aid. I literally saw a very prominent leader in, the leftist movement talking about how like mutual aid isn't gonna get it done, you know, GoFundMe pages aren't gonna direct aid is never gonna get us to a general strike. There's a huge misunderstanding about like what mutual aid is and how central it is to organizing. And this has been a problem in the labor movement for I think a very long time, right? And a lot of traditional organizers say organizing is all about power. It's just power, who has the power, you know, who has like it's just numbers, how many people, whatever. It becomes just a discussion of power and who has more and who has less. And what happens when we get into that like dialectical discussion of just like, you have the power, no, you have the power, is just like, yeah, you're just grabbing, it's just like pinballing back and forth. It's like they have the power and they're oppressing and exploiting workers, and then we just switch it. Now they have power, and it's just this like never-ending system of like exploitation and power, right? And we actually need to do something different to actually really liberate ourselves from that notion of just, you know, it's all about power, right? We need to build communities of care. And the best organizational strategies are ones where we are taking care of one another and building community. And that is what mutual aid is, right? It's about like liberating ourselves from this repetitive cycle of power and exploitation and actually like building a new way of existing where like people care for one another. And you know, it's not all about capital and resources, it's about like sharing and like providing for one another. And I think, you know, it sounds kind of idealistic, pie in the sky, but it's actually so central to organizing and like so central to what we're doing. And a direct example is what we saw in Minneapolis. The organizing work was absolutely hinged on neighbors providing for one another. You know, the local sex shop distributing diapers and food and resources for undocumented immigrants who were too scared to go to the grocery store because ICE was surrounding the area. Like, that's mutual aid. It's not just GoFundMe pages, right? So that's
That's
my.
no, I think it's really important to highlight because, you know, you know, you even said the phrase, you know, we need to build a community or culture of care. And I don't think we spend enough time of defining what that means and what that is and what the tools are available to us in terms to achieve that. And you spoke to this strongly is like what we are seeing around the ICE raids is that people are not motivated for the problem. They're motivated to support people. They're motivated by the care of others. And that's what's getting them out in the street. That is what's getting them to organize and provide the diapers or provide whatever's needed. It is something greater than the problem itself. It's actually creating a situation where the the bubble of that problem becomes irrelevant because we've created something different. And we're at that cusp of where we can continue down that path or we can fall back into that model that we're constantly taught, the model that you spoke about around the labor, that capitalist mindset of who has the power versus to changing that from not who has the power, but what do you need to show up fully to be who you are. And I think that's the core of what mutual aid represents. Even Kropotkin and his book Mutual Aid, it's a factor of evolution, and he names it as a factor of evolution because the simple understanding that the species who cooperate are those who are the ones that survive. And what we're talking about for the general strike, what we're seeing, what's happening in this capitalist model is fundamentally about survival. And when you realize that and you're in those conversations and you're creating from that space, things become different. New models emerge from that. And I know that General Strike U.S., in the going back to the memes of getting the information out there is constantly saying, like we've made the phone calls, we've marched, we protested, we've made our voices heard, and now we need more. And I think that's rooted in that understanding of survival. So could you expand on those memes that you're sharing, that kind of that mantra you're bringing forward is like that really makes it clear that this is about survival and not about reform or any other thing that actually replicates or uplifts the systems of harm?
Yeah, I mean, you basically, hit it on a nail, Jason. But the system, we've been, looking closely historically for generations, and it's done nothing but oppress and exploit the people. And just looking at past revolutionaries, we have a pretty good blueprint. We stand on the shoulders of giants. It's pretty clear at this point if you are tuned in, or if you do study any revolutionary works or theory philosophies. It's clear as day that it will be in our best interest, not just for humanity, but for the planet, to take control of the narrative. Is this really human nature? Is this how we really view the planet? Is something that we can dominate, or exploit, control? Is this it? For human evolution, is this all that will be? So we really just have to start looking and seeing, how this system really alters our perception of reality, and how it has been, done intentionally to do so, and whatnot. And we can't. They work overtime to keep us isolated. They work overtime to keep us, uneducated, to keep us docile and whatnot. You can tell, through the education. You can tell, even through the entertainment. At certain points, it's in our best interest to organize for our survival, and it's not just for, you know, better wages. It's so much deeper than that. Especially with everything that's coming out now. We're talking about, human trafficking. We're talking about, bodily autonomy being, revoked from people. We're free humans. These are the things, so much deeper than just getting a better raise. It's human rights, at the end of the day. And when it comes to human rights, those cannot be wavered on. Those cannot be, it's something that can't be negotiated. Yeah. And we can see the proof in materially. We can see the proof. We see, there's a select few who are living a life of luxury, and then we can look at the many who are, struggling materially. They can't feed themselves, they can't, house themselves. And yeah, the math isn't mathing up. If this is, the land of the free, if this is, one of the greatest countries in the world, those numbers aren't really adding up, especially when we have our, what do they call us? What do they call us? What was they calling us during COVID? What type of workers were we?
Oh, essential work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you have your essential workers, and they're working 40 to 50 hours, but they can't afford to take a vacation because majority of their checks uh goes towards paying corporations, goes towards paying for basic human needs, lights, gas, and things of that nature. So survival is definitely key, especially if we want a better future. We can't make it to the next day if we're starving right now in these times and ages. In this moment, we have to build those systems.
Capitalism sucks. And I think, you know, even Professor Richard Wolff, who's an economist that we have collaborated with a lot, he says capitalism is like like monarchies where the king rules. That's what capitalism is. It's undemocratic. Workers don't have a say. It goes completely against, anyone who believes in democracy, like shouldn't believe in capitalism, right? Um, it's a poor economic system because it crashes. Recessions, depressions, financial crashes, they're they're not an exception, they're a rule, right? The Great Depression, the 2008 financial crisis, the pandemic. Like any system that has these kind of crashes is just like not functioning. And, the exploitation is not just on an individual person basis, it's our global climate, it's our planet. These are things that are dying because of the system that we're continuing to uphold. And we can't survive like this. It's completely unsustainable.
Absolutely. And just to pull out even more of your point about capitalism, um, the way the system in which corporations are created is within the capitalist system. And it's no surprise that Mussolini defined fascism, coined fascism, was the unification between state and corporations. That should tell you something what the motivation behind the system of capitalism is. And why this work that we're doing, that you're doing, that General Strike U.S. is focused on and day to day, that it's centered on survival. It's centered on creating those culture systems and community of care. Um, Great work that you're doing. I'm sure many of the listeners right now are really inspired and have a lot of questions and want to get involved. So, what? How would you tell people who said like, "Well, I want to learn more and I want to get connected, or I want to start a chapter where I'm at"? How do they do it?
Before Day gets into that, my baby is crying. And we don't get paid to do this.
Yes.
I do have to take care of my baby. I trust that Day can completely take it from here if that is okay. I do have to jump because he is truly wailing. Um,
Yes. Please take care. Thank
okay.
you. Thank you so much for
Thank
being here.
you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. And thanks, Day, for picking up the slack. Thank you.
Yeah, so you all can get involved. We do have General Strike U.S. teachings every other Sunday. You can go to our link tree. You can go to our website and get more information regarding those. But once you go to the website or the link tree, you'll be able to see if there's a General Strike U.S. chapter near you that you can plug into. And if there's not one, definitely will help you get started with one. A good place also is to hop into our Discord where you'll be able to be in contact with many other organizers and volunteers, even those who may be in your area. And also subscribe to our YouTube as we have other content and material, workshops, and whatnot to keep you all informed.
Wonderful. And the website is generalstrikeus.com for folks who
Right
want to
on.
join. Anything else you want to share with the listeners that you want to make sure that we cover before signing off?
No, it's been great. I just want to just mention, shout out these three building blocks: survival, solidarity, and strategy. Definitely are some of the building blocks that we continue to build off of. As we said earlier, this is a process. This is a marathon and not a sprint. So we do seek to continue to build off each building block, and we'll love to collaborate with other groups who see these building blocks as prominent as well. All power to the people.
It's always great to have you, Day. Thank you so much for being in conversation with us, for doing all your work. And to all the chapters, to all the people who are already doing the General Strike U.S. work, thank you so much for all your efforts. We see you here at Radical Guide. We support you here. Thank you for everything and anybody who wants to get involved, please reach out to General Strike U.S. Again, their website, generalstrikeus.com. Feel free to reach out to Radical Guide at any time. If you have questions as well, we can connect you to General Strike. We can be in conversation. And again, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. And until we do another workshop, just remember, follow ideas, not people.